Shalom, shalom. Call Allah, Yahbashim Yahshai, Baharakal Kadash, Yahbashim Yahshai, Bashim Kadash, Brakatham. Yeah, buddy. We could just say RT News strikes again. You know, you go on, as you can see in post-production, it says America is in danger of having more rivals than it can handle. Okay, which was published today, January 24th of this year, 2022. It says, as the Ukraine crisis rolls on, there is a growing fear among Western commentators and foreign policy elites that a China-Russia axis is consolidating, which will pose a gargantuan threat. With this thinking, many, especially on the right of U.S. politics, have called for an effort to split Moscow from Beijing by courting Russia as an ally to tackle the threat of China. Yeah, but that's not going to happen. If you follow politics, you know that China and America has been going back and forth with the China Sea, with Taiwan, and they've been putting their hands in that, getting in the middle between China and Japan. In between that, the China Sea. There's also, Russia and China have been doing business together through oil and other economic situations. So their ties are very close. And then, you got Babylon, America, and Ukraine, and Kiev, and all that going on. And America's sending I forget which article I read, but America was sending military aid, by pretty much dropping off, military equipment and vehicles, okay, like they do food. All right, so, and, they're not going to get Russia on their side. So we're going to show the scripture that says that. Let's see, we're going to Ezekiel 29:4. It's like here. It's like it. It's not Ezekiel 9:4, Ezekiel 38. I'm just going to double check. Yep. So you go into Ezekiel 38 and 38:3, and you can really start at 1. It says, "And the word of the Lord came unto me, saying, Son of man, set thy face against Gog, the land of Magog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and that land is today's Russia, okay? And prophesy against him, and say, Thus saith the Lord, power, behold, I am against thee, O Gog, the chief prince of Meshach and Tubal, and I will turn thee back and put hooks into thy jaws, and I will bring thee forth in all thine army, horses and horsemen, all of them clothed with all sorts of armor, even a great company with bucklers and shields, all of them handling swords, Persia, Ethiopia, and Libya with them, all of them with shield and helmet, Gomar and all his bands, the house of Togarmah of the north quarters, and all his bands, and many people with thee. Be thou prepared and prepare for thyself, thou and all thy company that are assembled unto thee, and be thou a guard unto them. After many days thou shalt be visited in the latter years. Thou shalt come into the land that is brought back from the sword, and is gathered out of many people against the mountains of Israel, which have been always waste, but it is brought forth out of the nations, and they shall dwell safely, all of them, So, yeah, Russia's pretty much, the one that, the guy that's in a way to protect these little countries that are surrounding the area, and see here. See if I can find a precept. It was just kept popping up in my head as I was reading this. In Isaiah 13. Let's see here. I'm gonna make sure. It's at 13 and 17, but I want to make, they're speaking about Gog and Magog on here also. It says, Behold, I will stir up the Medes against them, which shall not regard silver, and as for gold, they shall not delight in it. Their bows also shall dash the young men to pieces, and they shall have no pity on the fruit of the womb. Their eyes shall not spare children. Okay, so we're in a place where Babylon is which is America, is being spread thin, very thin, via through politics, via through economic collapse, and insurrection also within the community and the people and the public. Okay, so going back to RT News, it says going back to what I was read earlier, and them talking about they're gonna try to get Russia and get cool with Russia, and that way they can go against China. That's not gonna work. Because they're not gonna regard silver or gold. They're not gonna want no money. Okay, and then on top of that, you have a past. You know what I'm saying? Russia meets up with y'all guys, but Russia don't respect. You forgot you put sanctions on them to the point that they had to get their own resources. And now you see that you can't handle that Ukraine situation and it's getting out of hand. You pretty much won't get on a team of them. Okay. What it says, a friend of my enemy is a friend of mine. A friend of my enemy is an ally, or however you want to say it. You pretty much get on side of the bigger enemy, or the smaller enemy, to take care of the bigger enemy. And then when you get rid of that enemy, then you get rid of Russia. And Russia ain't that slow to allow that to happen. It says, but that's me assuming, but we can all assume the same. It says, while that is not yet the position of the Biden administration, it is reflected in its foreign policy goals somewhat in its wish for a stable, predictable relationship with Russia, while seeking to prioritize China, however, owning to the unresolved dilemma of further NATO expansion along Russia borders, and a repetition of the flawed Obama-era logic that Moscow should be spoken down to as opposed to being treated as an equal. Things haven't worked out as planned, and Russia's messing with the gas, messing with the internet. They're doing all kind of things, So for them to be an ally, it would never work. They ain't going for that unless it's a benefit for them. And at the end of the day, you don't have them. Okay, it says this devastated South Pacific nation is on a geographical fault line and geopolitical one. U.S. policy continues to be ultimately defined by a rigid absolutism, which is destabilizing global security in what one American academic characterizes as overstretched superpower, asking, does America have more rivals than it can handle? Yeah, you didn't bit off more than you could chew. You beefing with too many people and you too spread thin. Now, if America versus any country, for the most part, they'll win. They have the military might, but when you trying to fight Russia and China and Iran and Iraq, South Korea or North Korea, whichever one, and then you beefing with Cuba and all these other people, you're spread thin, man. You bit off more than you could chew, to put it frankly. Okay. Scared. Moscow has set out clearly it demands for an improvement in relations with the U.S., but irrespective of what foreign policy realists suggest, the neoconservative thinking dominant in Washington cannot feasibly conceive the prospect of any compromise with a country deemed adversarial be it Russia, China, North Korea, or Iran. See, hey, that's the spirit. And that's all the people I named, right? Outside of Cuba or, South America, but they don't have no standing army like that, But they can't even humble themselves, because if they do, if you negotiate with any of these countries, Russia, China, North Korea, or Iran, you're going to have to yield to what they're offended at. If you're talking about like Iran with their enriched uranium, Russia with their business deals, get off our borders, you have to back up. That's going to put America, aka Babylon, in a compromised position when it comes to just power in itself. Because them circling around them doing their war drills and all that, it's just a display of power. But when you negotiate with somebody, you saying I lost. Okay, because when they say, hey, again, you say, okay, Iran, let's stop beefing. Iran goes like, yeah, we could be cool if you let me enrich my uranium. And America's going to say no, because you can make a nuke out of it and you can become more of a threat or whatever, and that's going to be a stalemate. America's going to have to give up something, and they're not willing to. They're not willing to humble themselves and not willing to let people be at peace, okay, because they're not prophesied to. They came to deceive the world and bring chaos to the world, man. And therefore, it ain't just Babylon, but Babylon's the woman, the harlot that sits upon the dragon. The rest of these so-called European countries, France, Europe, the 7 heads on the dragon, man. So with that being said, those dragon heads are going about taking away the peace from the world, man. Okay? Calling you illegal immigrants, aliens, thugs, whatever they demonize you as, just so they can continue in their agenda. Okay, American foreign policy strategy since 1991 has been fanatically obsessed with affirming an unilateral hegemony over the entire international system at all costs. Irrespective of how realistic that is, this makes a balanced policy impossible. Now, Washington finally finds itself facing pushback on multiple fronts from rivals who are much stronger than they were. This factor is the true driver of the burgeoning China-Russia strategic partnership. Their growing closeness with Iran and Pyongyang doubling down on its nuclear program. The Biden administration's foreign policy may die on this hill of conflicting pressures. Now, I want to reread a sentence that was said in there. It says, now Washington finally finds itself facing pushback on multiple fronts from rivals who are much stronger than they were. So you already know what scripture I'm going to pull out, right? You can go to Isaiah chapter 14, okay? Let's see here. So Isaiah 14:16, it says, they that see thee shall narrowly look upon thee and consider thee, saying, is this the man that made the earth to tremble, that did shake kingdoms, that made the world as a wilderness and destroyed the cities thereof? Thou hast opened the house of his prisoners. All the kings of the nation, even all of them lie in glory, everyone in his own house. But thou art cast out of thy grave like an abominable branch, and as the remnant of those that are slain, thrust through with the sword, that go down to the stones of the pit, as a carcass trodden down under feet. So this pretty much this not the that's not the scripture I was looking for. I mean, the whole chapter goes in. I just try to get straight to the point. But that that's what they're gonna do. They're gonna narrowly look at you and say, okay, man, you ain't that dude no more. You know what I'm saying? Salaki, I'm gonna just have to go up and get it all out. Let's see. So in verse 10 is where I was looking for. And it says, all they shall speak and say unto thee, art thou also become weak as we? Art thou become like unto us? Thy pomp is brought down to the grave, and the noise of thy voils, the worms is spread under thee, and the worms cover thee. You see, so Esau is losing his power. The curse of the mark is being lifted. Okay, let's get down to the nitty gritty. The curse of Cain, that mark that Cain had on him, which was leprosy, and Esau coming out as a nation of leopards, and the spiritual reincarnation of Cain. They pretty much are losing that. Said they're losing that pomp. Sit down in the dust, O virgin daughter of Babylon. All right, though thou was called tender and delicate. Okay, they're losing that part. Okay, they're sitting in the dust. They're sitting in confusion. All right, terror shall make thee afraid upon every side. Let's get that. So I can. There we go. So Job 18:11, it says, terrors shall make him afraid on every side and shall drive him to his feet. Yeah, because you can't relax no more. You got to be on every email, every monitor. You got to see what Russia's doing, Iran doing. You got to see what Canada's doing. You got to see what South America's doing. And the more countries you add on, the more work you adding on to yourself. All right, and they can't maintain it. Now let's get to the end game. Slacking. So, I mean, see here. I don't want to get that. I don't want to misget the scripture. I want to get the specific one I'm looking for, because I'm looking for the scripture when it speaks specifically say matter of fact, I found it. Jeremiah 50:14 says, put yourselves in array against Babylon round about, all ye that bend the bow, shoot at her, spare no arrows, for she hath sinned against the Lord. So that's the end game. Pretty much all they that were at peace with thee shall narrowly look upon thee, man. All your allies, all your enemies, everybody's about to turn their arrows, which are their thermonuclear missiles, and point and shoot. Okay, because at the end of the day, it's about their country's survival. Everybody's going to want to save themselves in their own country. All right. Some making a stand now, and some will seize their opportunity when the opportunity presents itself. OK, so with that being said, I wanted to say, call hello, y'all, Bashim Yah Shai, Bahara Kakadash, that honest to our apostles who are elders who rule well, blessed and salutations to the brothers out there teaching and enduring truth, sincerity, and sincere habitum to Quayim. Also, the wheat that amongst tears that follow truth, sincerity, and the women also that enduring truth, sincerity. Shalom.